So today we are going to talk about prophesying, prophets. Am I a prophet? Are there prophets out there? So one thing that we have to realize about prophesying is we need to know what it means. Prophesying is predicting the future. That's what prophesying is. Now the way it used to work in the Old Testament is that God would give the prophet a direct word, exactly what to tell the people. The prophet would go, tell the people, and if it did not happen, he was a false prophet and he was killed under the law. But what proved a prophet back then was if it happened or if it didn't. And whether they believed it or not was not based on all kinds of evidence and things like this. It was only based on if the prophecy happened or not. When the prophet went, he just simply told them, hey, this is what God said. You believe it, yes. You believe it, no, period. And the only way of testing at that time was believing it and it happening or believing it and it not happening, based on that. Now, I'm going to show you what Paul says for us today in the dispensation of the grace of God. And there are two extremes today. There's people that are cessationists that say there's no gifts at all. And then there's people that say that the gifts are working exactly like they work throughout the whole Bible. And both of these are wrong in my opinion. Again, we have to recognize dispensational changes, progressive revelation. In other words, I'll tell you this right now. What I do not believe is happening is that people are getting a perfect word from the Lord, audible from the air, and then they are going to people and telling them exactly what is going to happen in the future. I don't believe that is happening today. However, I don't believe that there is no possibility of predicting or prophesying over somebody and the future. And I'm going to show you back this up with the Bible and what Paul says for us today. It's important to note what is our instruction for our understanding of what's going on today in Paul's gospel, because he is the one that got the gospel of grace by revelation of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ revealed to him some more understanding, new understanding of this information for us today. God doesn't change. God doesn't change. But what he reveals to man for his understanding changes over time. And that's Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1. At different times and different ways, God spoke. Now, here's what Paul says for us today. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, starting at verse 19. Quench not the spirit. And the spirit there is a capital S, talking about the Spirit of God. Don't quench it. In other words, when you're quenched, you're like, oh, I need a drink, I don't feel right. This is not right. Well, don't do that to the Spirit. Keep the Spirit full. Keep it running, living water, right? Then it says this, despise not prophesying. Don't despise prophesying. So when somebody prophesies to you, don't despise it. But then look at what it says next. And also the prophesier. Realize that it is possible to prophesy, but listen to what it says next. Prove all things. Hold fast that which is good. Now this can go both ways in my opinion. The person listening to the prophesying being done over them, prove it. Do your research, pay attention. Did these things come to pass or did they not come to pass? Were they correct or were they not correct? That's what the Bible means when it says test the spirits. Spirit is also translated into the word mind. Test the mind. Test what they're telling you, if it's true or not. Prove all things. This also goes for the person that is prophesying. It's a dual meaning here, in my opinion. When you go up to somebody and prophesy, prove it. Give evidence to support your claims. Prove all things. And on both ends, hold fast to that which is good and then throw out the bad. So the person prophesying, if you were right on some things, hold on to that. And if you're wrong about some things, throw them out. Just like the person listening. If they're right about some things, hold on to that. If they're wrong about some things, throw it out. Now, we have to be very, very, very careful with our discernment on these things, because there are so many deceivers out there, and also so many people who don't have the understanding and are just going out there and doing this and giving people false hope. You know, when you prophesy to somebody, you can fill them with hope. But when these things don't come to pass, then they're going to say, oh, that Bible is no good, or God is no good, or, you know, they're not true. Christians are not true. So you have to be very careful how you handle this. And it goes the same with deceivers. They'll do this on purpose to make God look bad, to make Christians look bad, and to make the Bible look bad. That's what's been going on, in my opinion, for a lot of years. The megachurch scene and all the prosperity gospel and all these things, false gospels, a lot of it is being done on purpose by the enemy and his workers to make the Bible look untrue and to make God look like that he doesn't exist. So now what I want to show you is what Paul says in 1 Corinthians to match with this, okay? He says this, starting in verse 8, charity never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. So Paul right there is saying that not all prophecies are going to be perfect. Because they were perfect in the Old Testament. But today, not all prophecies are going to be perfect. Now, watch, let me show you what it says. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. Well, some people say, well, that which is perfect has come, which is the Bible. But I believe that that is talking about God. When that which is perfect is come. And he says, when we're face to face with God, then he'll know. And I'm not saying the Bible is not perfect, but our understanding is not perfect. And that's where God is perfect. When we are perfectly understanding everything, and we're never going to do it right now in the sinful flesh. And he says why. Look at this. Going down to verse 12. For now we see through a glass darkly. That's the sinful flesh. That's the state that we're in, the fallen state, everything. But then, face to face. Face to face. Now I know in part. Now we know in part. Now. But then shall I know even as also I am known. See, God knows us perfectly, but we don't know him perfectly. We try and do our best. That's why we know in part. We prophesy in part. But when we're face to face with him, then we'll know exactly. A lot of people say that's the Bible. No. I'm not saying that there's any problem with the Bible. I'm saying our understanding, because we are seeing through a glass darkly right now, which is our fallen state. But when we are face to face with him, then everything is perfect. No misunderstandings. Again, this is good because it does give you the ability to predict the future without being stoned to death under the law. Again, we have to be careful because there are so many deceivers out there. So the question remains, am I a prophet? In part. In part. And I do my best to prove the predictions that I make about the future with the Bible and every bit of information that I can gather. Are there prophets out there? Only in part. There is no perfect prophet today. And it's up to your discernment to figure out when they're wrong, are they purposely deceiving me or were they genuinely wrong? And that's where discernment comes in, the ability to see what's under a thing. So that's it. Thank you guys. God bless.